Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting with the Virtual Tasting Society. Today, we are excited to taste a different spirit than usual. We are going to the land of agave, and we are going to be tasting some amazing mezcals today. And wouldn't you know it, the brand we're tasting today is Mezcal de Leyendas. And joining us is their California or maybe West Coast brand ambassador. Are you California or how many states?
Yeah, California.
The California brand ambassador, Marsilio. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight. We're excited to try some Mezcal de Leyendas. I've heard really good things, and we have some fantastic expressions in front of us. Everyone here is a regular, so I don't need to talk about the rules. Have fun, ask questions, enjoy. And yeah, let's begin. Marcelo, you want to tell us about the brand? And first question for you, how should we line these up? What order are we going to taste these in?
I think we should go the ancho first.
Okay.
Then the espadín, then the tobala, the cenizo, and vinata solar, and quiche for last.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I've got them lined up.
That's all of them, right?
That is all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. So the Mezcal de Leyendas started as a project, kind of consequential project to one of the first mezcal bars in Mexico City called La Botica, which now actually has a few locations. But that's basically where the relationship began with every one of the maestro mezcaleros that we work with. And so this was the project to basically start selling to the US market and bringing it on board. So like both owners are from Mexico City, as you can imagine. And the one of the owners that lives in actually Virginia, his name is Danny Mena, and he's actually a chef. So I've always said that the best mixologists and bartenders are actually chefs because they know flavor. And so the idea is to basically gather from each of the expressions that you're getting. It's basically select or work with the maestro mezcalero that we believe makes the best expression of that agave or that method of production, or that it's very representative of the region that it's coming from. We're considered to have the largest coverage of the denomination of origin for any mezcal brand out there. And what that means is, if you're familiar with the denomination of origin for mezcal, that covers about 9 to 10. I think there's one more state that was recently added, of Mexico, which makes it one of the largest. I mean, the denomination of origin for mezcal is one of the largest in the world in terms of territory, basically territory coverage. And then on top of that, you have all the production methods. We have mezcal allows for about 45 different species of agave to be used. And these are the 45 species that we know have enough sugars to produce a spirit, basically. So, and so we're going to cover a few of those. So, and Mezcal de Leyendas, we don't have all the expressions available at all times, but every release basically has some sort of coverage to that. So, yeah.
For mezcal, is there a limit for which agaves can be used, or is it any agave can really be used for mezcal?
It's any agave. You can use blue agave if you want, which is the one for tequila. Just Jalisco is not part of the denomination of origin for mezcal. Jalisco has it. Mm-hmm.
So when people say that all tequila is mezcal, that's actually not correct.
If it's if you have blue agave from Michoacan, which Michoacan it's part of the denomination, there's an overlap with tequila and mezcal there. So if you use blue agave, and you can decide whatever to call it, basically. So for tequila, tequila has some restrictions. It's not the entire state of Michoacan, for example, that can grow agaves for the tequila, for the production of tequila. Mm-hmm. But you can go into the selected area, let's say that, and collect the blue agaves and make a mezcal with it. So it's still technically true that every tequila is a mezcal, except for the tequila from Jalisco.
Except from Jalisco. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
gotcha. Okay, very
Yeah.
cool.
So, I mean, does anybody, are we familiar? Is everybody familiar with the mezcal production
I think
method?
if we, it'd be good to touch base on it. It's been quite a while since we've done any agave spirits.
Okay. Maybe I can, I mean, we're gonna go very basic, but maybe I can share my screen here. Let me see what I could do to share. Okay,
You should
share
be able to.
screen. And then let's see. Okay, we're gonna see. Oh gosh, okay. I gotta allow Sim to, sorry. Just 1 second. Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna be able to share my screen. I don't know, Vadim, if you happen to be on our website, but if you go to any of the gosh, I just got confused. But on our website, you will see, but you have some of the production methods that are the way it's produced. So just to get started, so mezcal, you collect basically the raw material, which is the agave, whichever plant you decide that you're going to use. Normally, agaves will be roasted in like pit ovens, basically. So these are underground ovens. They will use whatever local wood. So mesquite is a very popular type of wood that's being used for cooking the mezcales. And you know, it's kind of a process, right? They start the fire, they light up the wood, and then they will put stones, usually like river stones that will get lined. They would line the entire oven, basically. And then after that, they will use some of the agave fibers and line the entire oven with that so that the agaves don't get like direct burning. And obviously this style changes, but we're just gonna go mainly basic. So then they'll throw the agaves and then they'll cover them with tarps, and then they'll throw soil or dirt basically on top of it to create an entire seal, right? A really tight seal on the oven, so that the cooking is gonna last between normally it's about 3 days of cooking and then another day of cooling down after the agaves are fully cooked. And this will depend on the mezcaleros, and you'll see some differences, but basically when the cooking happens, some of the agaves will get burned, and some people, for efficiency, they will still use those. So most of our mezcaleros will get rid of the burn parts on the agaves, so that they don't add a terrible tannic or extremely smoky flavor to it. And then you go into the fermentation process or actually the crushing. So the crushing can happen between a Tahona wheel, which is the big stone. It's called an Egyptian mill as well. It's the big stone wheel that it's normally pulled by a horse or a donkey, or sometimes they'll use a little engine to do it. And after the crushing happens, you will go into fermentation. Normally, most of our mezcales, I think all of our mezcales, are being fermented in wooden vats. And a lot of people think, well, like people confuse that with aging. And none of our mezcales go through any aging. And the wood that's being used to ferment the agaves is a pretty neutral pine, normally that is used. These are very, very old pine vats that are used for fermentation. Now the fermentation is also an open vat fermentation. So there's no, it's what they call a spontaneous fermentation, which uses wild yeast from the environment. There's no proprietary yeast that we make or any of our mezcaleros do to acquire a specific flavor profile. The flavor profile that you will be tasting is going to be the one from the region that it's coming from, basically. And then we go into the distillation process right after that. all of our mezcales are double distilled. And then this is fermentation. It's where you acquire like all the natural flavors from that gives you a sense of place and stuff like that. And then I think in the distillation process is where the mezcaleros truly work their art, and they want to be able to express the flavors of the agave at the best as best possible. So that means that they will do their cuts in the distillation, heads, body, and tails at the levels that they believe is the best flavor profile for that agave. And so that's why you'll see in all of our bottles the proof on each mezcal is going to be different. And that's just dictated by what the mezcalero believes is the best. So that's in a nutshell how mezcal gets produced. So on top of that, you have the nine states, 9 to 10 states, 45 different species of agaves. The crushing, the distillation, and the fermentation will change depending on the region that you're working with, basically. Okay. But we can go on into tasting a little bit of the ancho, if that's okay. Yeah.
Sounds
So
good.
it's everybody on the ancho right now. The ancho is ancho, if you've seen mezcal, so this is what the bottle looks like, right? Ancho, if you're familiar with it, it will say on this label right here, Cupreata. I don't know if you can read it there. Oh, there you go. Agave Cupreata. And Cupreata is what normally comes in the bottles, but ancho is the way that it's locally known, right? And just to give you a little bit of the production method, each of our bottles will have sort of like a basic description of how each mezcal gets produced. And then obviously this is our legend, right? The Maestro Mezcalero is the legend. That's why the mezcal, it's called Mezcal de Leyendas, because it's the mezcal of the legends. So this one is done by this Maestro Mezcalero, Chicharo Obregón, and in an area of Guerreros. So Guerreros sits on the northwest of Oaxaca. It's still a coastal state, and it's kind of a semi-humid region. That it's called Mazatlan, the region where it's coming from. And Mazatlan is like a high precipitation area, so it's like it's abundant with water. Elevation is not very much. It doesn't have a lot of elevation. So it's only 1,100 meters, basically, which translates to about 3,600 meters, feet of elevation, which if you do the correlation between altitude and the bricks that the agave collects, it will be much lower here. But because also, I mean, the temperature can get really hot, but during the fermentation, the nights are a little bit cooler. The actual access to a lot of water makes it for this mezcal to have some of those lactic situations going on. And maybe I should talk about flavor profiles when you guys have actually tried the mezcal, and maybe we can discuss and what the flavors are. But do we have any thoughts already?
Sea salt, like.
Does ancho have anything to do with ancho chilies, or where does the name come from?
Just because the agave is wide, basically. And so ancho means wide, right?
Oh, okay.
So in Spanish, and it's just like a lot of the naming of the agaves are basically based out of how the agave looks like, right? The agave looks wide, it looks like a barrel, or it looks like a tree trunk, or I mean, whatever it looks like, basically or it looks like a wild boar, like we have some jabalí, for example. So that translates to wild boar. It's just like the sharp teeth of the pencas look like a wild boar. So that is that's basically the idea, that what they call it. But then cupreata, it's the scientific name for it, right? So, and the cupreata is the endemic plant of the state of Guerrero. Basically, that's what's mostly abundant. This is a wild cupreata. You don't see that much cultivated yet, but that's starting to happen, which is not bad. Yeah, the production on this stuff is under 12,000 liters, which and then this is a mezcal that you're actually starting to taste. One of the it's a mezcal that it's cooked underground, and then the shredding happens with a mechanical shredder. So the Mexican government back in the late 80s, early 90s, they went and delivered these mechanical shredders for the production of mezcal. And this is basically to increase efficiency and production and stuff like that, but it's also to prevent the maestros mezcaleros from losing their back when they're like 65, 70, because these maestros mezcaleros, they work till they die. So like they're always working. There's no retirement plan for them. This is the field is the retirement plan. So when you do a hand crushing of an agave, it's usually like a big mullet, and it's like probably 100 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. And it's usually a wooden mallet, and they just crush it that way. But it's a very labor intensive process. And then this is the method that was used in remote areas where a big, stone wheel was impossible to bring in. So they went from there from the hand crushing into the mechanical shredders. So, and then mechanical shredders to me provide, it's a very distinctive because I feel that they provide what do you call, like a more raw vegetable flavors, like root vegetables. And I don't know if you can pick up some of that stuff in this one, but you don't feel like a caramelization on the flavor that you're tasting here. It feels still very raw. And correct me, there's no right or wrong answer to this. Actually, this is my perception of it, and it continues to be consistent in that sense. But do we have any comments there?
I mean, I definitely got a vegetal note up front, like with a little bit of pepper on the end there. But yeah, no, I was surprised to hear that this was done mechanically and not just standard by hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's very standard. There are parts in Oaxaca that are going to use, I think the one part of Oaxaca that makes amazing mezcal, it's Miahuatlan. I don't know if you've ever heard of that region, but like most of them, they're using mechanical shredders and like the stuff that they're bringing. So this is one of the things that people get. They're like, well, they're using a mechanical shredder. It's not going to be as good. I only want mezcal ancestral because, that's the most traditional form of drinking a mezcal. But to be honest, I feel like it's as traditional as any mezcal, because it's it doesn't rip out flavor, right? It provides its own characteristic of flavor, but this is fully packed of flavor. I mean, to me, it's lactic, it's herbal, it's vegetable, it's got a little bit of salinity going on, and I think somebody agreed with that. But it's basically a full mouth of flavor, and being distilled at 46.9%, it's a great expression. I'm very subjective here, by the way, guys. I'm very biased.
I will say it's interesting within the mezcal category that most, as far as I know, with the agaves, most are distilled to bottling strength. So in other words, you don't like distill to 46 and then bottle at 40. If it's 40, it's distilled to 40. Is that right?
So this being distilled to proof, it's a practice that gets done. So so when you do see mezcales that are being done 40, 41%, 42%, and that's not a natural thing, right? That's normally to bring it down that low at 40, 41, 42, that means that water was added. And even mezcales that are 47, 48%, that were reduced with water. What happens here, it's that there's a process called the adjustment, and that one is usually done with heads and tails. So that's when some people do, instead of using water, they'll reduce proof by adding heads or tails. And the tails are going to be the lower alcohols that are, they're under 30%. And then the heads are going to be above 60, right? So puntas y colas is the term in Spanish. But some of our mezcaleros, they decide to use water for adjustment, and some of them don't. This is not something that this is very reminiscent to something that is distilled to proof at 46.9. And one of the reasons you find out about that, right, it's when you're drinking the mezcal and you keep it in your palate, for a little bit, keep it in your tongue and stuff like that. You can feel the separation. If you keep it long enough, you feel the separation of like, a viscosity and like what you feel like it's water. So it does happen. And try it with a mezcal. It's very obvious when a mezcal is 40%, because then, the water kind of starts separating from the alcohol, and it's actually really interesting process. And that's one way to tell, basically, for me, from my experience. That's one of the ways that I'm able to tell. And there's a big argument about water being added to reduce the proof. Like, some people were like, well, like, that's not the true flavor. When you add water, you're taking away flavor for the mezcal and stuff like that. But I mean, the quality of water they're using to reduce some of this stuff is, it's not your typical bottled water. That they're using whatever water is available in the locality, right? So very rarely you'll see guys using distilled water, which is probably not that good, because you're ripping off all the minerals that the water has. So, yeah.
What kind of like characteristics does the agave bring into this? Is it like, is the variable of the agave more of like a sugar, like how much sugar the agave produces that bleeds into the tequila? And would this be a less sugary agave, would you say?
This is so if we were talking about a tequila region, this would be considered a lowland agave. So this is your agave that collects less sugar. So you're talking about 24 to 28 bricks. So that's 24, 28% of sugars. I don't have the exact brick level that these agaves were harvested at, but that's definitely something that I would definitely like to see. But that peppery or that chile flavor that you get is something that's very consistent with a lowland agave, right? So lowland agaves, they tend to be a little bit more herbal and more vegetable driven and more peppery in that sense, just because more things grow in the bottom where the access to water is not as it's not as scarce. So the reason, like agaves, these agaves at lowlands, they don't fight so much for water, right? They're not struggling to get water. Everything is a runoff that you get. And so the agaves don't have any problem growing. So they don't need to they don't need to naturally generate more starches to survive, or more, and in comparison to a highland agave, which, we're going to try one that's really high, our espadín. Actually, that's a great transition. We can actually go into the espadín. and
Nice
look,
Segui.
yeah, yeah, I mean, this is an
Well,
espadín.
actually, I've got a question for you real quick
Yes,
about
go for it.
what you were
Yeah.
talking about with distilled to proof and all that.
Yes.
So as I understood it in Mexico, when you actually go to like the Plinqueros and all that, usually the proof is significantly lower than what we see here in the US in the 30 to 35%. And I understand that they bump it up to export to the US to be considered a distilled spirit. So but you're saying that that's done mostly with heads and tails and not with adding water.
Okay, so those are two different things. So the legality for bringing a spirit into the US, it needs to be imported at 40%, which is a law that's going to change very soon. And for the Mexican market, we see tequilas and mezcales that are being done at between 35 and 38%. But that's just what the market likes down there. It's not a law, it's not a regulation. And those ones are brought down with water, for sure. There's no way you can bring it down to 38% with heads. I mean, with adding. So when you're doing the distillation, for example, and when let's say you do the cut for heads and you do your cuts for tails, and then the maximum or that your body is going to be, which the body is what we normally drink, the maximum is going to be 55%. Okay, so that's what the body, that's what it comes out to, like, no matter what, basically your body is going to be 55%, and then from there the mezcalero decides to adjust with tails and or heads or water to reduce the proof. Now that is the fact that, like, I was working with another brand in the past, and like, you know, their stuff they were sending to Colombia was 33%, you know. So it's just to fit a market, basically, when they reduce the proof and to make it more approachable. I mean, in Mexico, the way you drink in Mexico is completely different than the way you consume alcohol here in the US. I mean, over there, the cocktail culture is barely, I mean, I need to rephrase that, because actually this year, like, Mexico got probably mentioned in, like, I don't know, like 10 of the 50 best bars or something like that.
Weren't two of them in Mexico City named two of the best tequila and mezcal bars in the world, I believe?
Yeah. So that, I mean, the cocktail culture is changing, but before that, people drink straight. People drink highballs, or like just, you know, like your typical whiskey and soda, and they will actually serve you in a restaurant, you know, the shot of the booze that you're drinking, and then your club soda on the side, and then your limes on the side, and then you build your cocktail because you're the consumer and you're the expert at drinking. So, but that's the culture. And then also drinking straight, it's a normal thing down there. And so when you're doing it at a lower proof, it's much easier you don't have to think about it, right? You don't have to think about alcohol and burning your palate and stuff like that, and, like, you know, really, really, truly discovering flavor profiles in a mezcal. So, yeah. Okay.
Cool. No, thank you. That was great explanation. Appreciate it.
Cool. All right. So, okay, that was so we're gonna go with the ancho, and this is Leo Hernandez. I'm sorry, Espadín. This is our next guy. And this is a considerably higher proof. So this is from an area called San Baltasar in San Baltasar in the state of Oaxaca. And then the state of Oaxaca is very, you know, there are 9 to 10 states that produce mezcal right now, but Oaxaca produces about 90% of the mezcales that we see. And Oaxaca also has one of the highest, it has the largest biodiversity of agaves in the world. Also, Oaxaca possesses about 3% of the biodiversity in general of the world, which is only second to Colombia, which Colombia, I think, has about 10% of the biodiversity. So, the amount of ingredients that you will see there. And this is the reason I mentioned this about biodiversity of different ingredients is because agaves tend to pick up the flavors of the stuff that's planted around them, so it's a really interesting correlation there. But San Baltasar del Ávila, it's about 6,000 feet elevation, very arid, very hot. So the agaves are like, this is their heaven right there. And precipitation is very low. So this is what I would consider to be an espadín that's gonna have around 30% bricks. And this is again, I'm assuming that that's from what the region brings. And this is also a really interesting aspect because espadín, a lot of people look down on espadín because they say, well, espadín is the most, common type and like, it's not going to be complex and stuff like that. It's actually probably one of the most complex agaves that you will see. And it's also one of the most sustainable agaves that you will see. Why? Because in terms of complexity, this is, if you want to get a sense of terroir, because mezcal, tequila, and brandy are all terroir-based spirits. With an espadín, you can get the best sense of terroir because an espadín is going to grow anywhere you put it. It's going to be, if you plant it on top of a rock, it's going to grow. So it's a very interesting plant in that sense. And so it will give you the best sense of terroir in that. And the reason why I say it's sustainable, it's because, if you let one of these plants to go to seed, to flower, and like do its whole life cycle, basically, and you collect the seeds, you're going to be collecting about 3,000 to 5,000 seeds with a 98% success rate if you replant those seeds. So that is why it's sustainable. It's a very friendly plant because it grows fast. I mean, generally faster than most of the agaves. You can have a mature agave in about 7 years, which is not that bad. But if you plant directly from seed, it's going to take the 10 years that it generally takes. So San Baltasar, very minerally driven, very coppery, very red soil. But the caramelization on this stuff is incredible. It's like the way it opens up in the back of your palate is just outstanding. And this has made it, not because I work with the brand, but this is actually has made it one of my favorite espadíns. This is not something that I would give to anybody as your first mezcal, as a, hey, let me introduce you to mezcal, take this espadín, because it's definitely a very harsh one. You need a little bit of preparation for the palate to receive this juice. But I think it's the way it opens up is incredible. It's complex, it's got layers, and it's got textures. It smells like wet earth. What is everybody thinking about this one? I see some thumbs up there. Thank you, Clayton.
I'm getting
noticed-
a lot of different flavors off of it. Really interesting, like a roasted root veggie. It's got salinity, but it's really subtle. It's a much finer kind of salinity than the ancho. And then it's like sunflower, that light, nutty sort of flavor, but the stone minerality, like you were saying, for the soil and that, it's really interesting. This is delicious.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say,
Anybody else?
I think I get like a lemon, kind of like herbs. I don't know, just a couple of things that came out. Definitely a minerality there. I was also gonna just say, Marsilio, that's appreciate you sharing more about like the plants, because I think when I think of mezcal and what I've seen, I'm still somewhat of a novice to mezcal, but how more often you see espadines as, you know, popular mezcals that are out there. And that makes sense because of what you said about how easy they are to replicate and, you know, timelines to be able to get those done. So is it, you know, is, to my understanding, the mezcals that you have, each expression is named after the plant, right? Or the variety of the plant?
Yeah.
Now, if you guys have multiple, like, do you guys ever do multiple expressions of espadine where then you have to, you name it something else, or kind of a some other additional name to it?
There, we don't have anything in production right now, but there's an espadín there. So espadín falls into a family of agave called angustifolia, and actually, you know, angustifolia derived from a family called Americana, like the Arroqueños, and then the espadín was formed, and actually blue agave is like kind of like a newer cousin of espadín, basically. But yes, I'm really forgetting the name right now. But there are other angustofolias out there that are the equivalent of espadín. So in Durango, there's one called chacaleño. We don't have any chacaleños in production right now. And I'm forgetting the other name. In Guerrero, they'll know this plant as criollo. So we have another brand called Pelotón de la Muerte. And Pelotón de la Muerte, we have in production a mezcal that we call criollo, and it's actually also distilled at 50% in the same process of the cupreata or the ancho that you tasted previously. And it's an incredible expression. So I highly recommend you to sort of compare those two flavors. The other one has a little bit more texture than this one. It's has a little bit more viscosity. But yes, you will see different espadines, different angustofolias out there that actually, like in Jalisco, which is actually a big place for angustofolias, they call them amarillos. So
Wow,
they're different.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, that's just a wealth of knowledge and information. Definitely helps to better understand kind of where you guys are coming from with those things. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you, man. Thanks for asking the questions. Honestly, like, everybody participating, it just makes the experience a lot more rich. So thank you.
So
as a tag on to that, would the natural fermentation process you described earlier, that would probably impact it too, right? Because if you take one espadine in one part of the country and let natural fermentation happen, and you go 800 miles away somewhere else, different elevation, different temperature, you're going to get different results. Completely
different results. And yes, when you're producing a natural spirit like this, you don't control the flavor. The only way that you might be able to control it is you know, in the distillation. That's like, you know, that's 30% of flavor acquisition, basically. So yes, the yeast, when you get most of your flavor, it's from the fermentation process, and the yeast has a lot to say. So like, if I were to do a blind tasting, I would tell you where every agave comes from. Just kidding. But if I were to do a blind tasting, for example, of San Baltasar, it's a region that there are other expressions from San Baltasar that are very pungent and very musty, and that's what like stuck in my mind. This one has a little bit of that mustiness and pungency that you will find, but it's a little bit more balanced. And then there's another region in Oaxaca called Miahuatlan, that one I could tell on a blind tasting. So San Baltasar and Miahuatlan are two regions that I could probably do, and that's it. That's it. If you were to put me on espadín and stuff, because I mean, it's a very tough, it's definitely a difficult thing to do. Like, a lot of things come into play, but yes.
So I guess like expanding on that in terms of the differences in the process and how they contribute to the taste, are there any differences between these two in the way that they're refined? Does this one use a shredder? And do you feel like that contributes to the taste?
Yes. So if you I don't know if you picked up any of the caramelization flavors that this espadín has and that the ancho lacked. And I think that there is a big difference. When you're shredding, right, you're ripping basically apart. But I don't think that you're generating much heat in the process of doing that. And when you're pressing with the Tahona wheel, I feel like a little bit of the sugars already being, sort of cooked in a way with the heat that the Tahona can produce. Stone to stone contact with the agave, I think that's generating some, and I think that's why every time I taste something that's crushed with the Tahona, normally it will be a lot more rounder than if you do a mechanical shredder. So and then when you do hand crushing, it's an in-between, basically. It's in between those two. So
Wow, that's interesting, because there's another brand that they have a particular bottle that is, a Tahona, and that is my favorite of the different expressions. It's a tequila, but nonetheless, that's interesting.
that's San Matias Tahona.
No, it's
No.
a different one, but I don't want to get into the other brands, but just simply like that. That's cool to know. Like as you share that, maybe that's one of the reasons that I prefer that particular expression over some of the others.
And it's like at the end of the day, like I wouldn't necessarily call that a mechanical shredder. It's like nature is like, charging you in flavor. I just think that you get a completely different flavor profile when you're doing shredding. But then it just happens to that it is more efficient as well. You get a better efficiency than if you lose some juice when you're doing Tahona crushing, because you're not able to extract or like to collect everything that you're pressing, basically. And so that's one of the things that it might happen that you just like more rounder flavors in your mezcal or your tequila. So
Sean asked this in the chat, and I'm going to steal it before he gets to ask it. And the stills, are there differences in the stills? And does that affect the flavor?
Oh, very much. Yes. So you have copper, which is the most standard, right? We don't see that much stainless steel, but there are some mezcales that will be using stainless steel. There's another one called the Filipino style still, which is the Filipino, and there's two types of Filipinos, depending on what you use. So like one of the Filipinos will have a copper pot, or the other one can have a clay pot with, and then the Filipino style still is basically the condenser chamber. It's a wooden chamber basically, and then they use a little bamboo stick to like collect the juice and stuff like that. So you're gonna be tasting one with Filipino style still today, which is the cenizo. The cenizo is it's done with Filipino style. So, and then you have the clay pot distillation. So when you're talking clay pot distillation, so if you do everything entirely, right? If you do your cooking all underground, you do your fermentation in wooden vats, you do your crushing by hand, and then you distill in clay pots, that automatically makes it a mezcal ancestral, right? That's one of the categories. So with mezcal, you have three categories. You have the category of just mezcal. So if you ever see a bottle out there that just says mezcal, just like stay away from it, because it's going to be like a massively produced mezcal. And then mezcal artesanal, which is what we have the most and what everybody, a lot of factors come into play. It's what you'll see the most out there. Not that it's bad, it's excellent. All of the mezcales we're tasting here are ancestral, are artesanales. And then you have mezcal ancestral, which is the process that I described, right? And a lot of people get like, well, like I just want a mezcal ancestral, and then, you know, and then they see the price and they're like, okay, maybe not really. But it's a very, what's to appreciate about a mezcal ancestral is that you're appreciating the process and the amount of work that it took to get you that bottle. That doesn't mean necessarily that you will like it. Okay. I don't think that every agave should be distilled in ancestral method, but you know, hey, and it's a very specific to two regions of Oaxaca. It's Santa Catarina Minas and Sola de Vega. Those two areas in Oaxaca are the ones that specialize in clay pot distillation and ancestral mezcal. So yeah, so
what is this Asperin distilled in? You mentioned.
This is distilled in copper. Yeah,
Copper.
so everything we've had so far is copper. We've only had two, but yes, copper. So
And this one's also machine shredded.
no, this was Tahona.
Tahona, okay.
Tahona pressed. So yeah.
By a donkey or by a human?
The picture shows a donkey, so we'll go with donkey.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it is a donkey.
I can smell the donkey. That makes sense.
You know, like I was in a, we're gonna go on the sideline a little bit here. I was in a very like remote palenque of Miahuatlan, and like this like tiny little property, and you know, these were the people, because they don't have too many equipment and stuff like that, or fermenting vats, and they basically have to, when they collect the agaves because they're ripe, they have to come home and cook them. And like, you know, if they don't have space in the fermentation tanks, then they'll basically just leave the agaves laying on the ground for like 20 days or something like that, because that's probably how much it's going to take them to, you know, bring them back. And so I was like, every time I go to a palenque, the first thing I do is like, I go to where the cooked agave is, and like I grab a piece and start eating it because it's like delicious. But this stuff has been laying on the floor for like 20 days or something, and there's dogs out there like peeing on it and stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna go try it because it's a different type. And I did, and it had mold in it, you know, and I threw it, I put it away immediately. Not that the mold is bad, because when you distill that stuff, it's gonna taste amazing. Like, because it's already fermenting on the ground. It's probably collecting different bacteria for fermentation. And once you do the distillation, it's basically a clean filtration that just gives the great flavors in it. So it's a really cool, it's a really amazing experience, to be honest. So yeah. So we can move on to the Tobalá now, right? So Tobalá is the scientific name would be called Potatorum. I think it's in here somewhere. And this is actually Aaron Robles, Aaron Robles is like an amazing guy. He doesn't necessarily like, I don't think he chooses to work by himself, but this is the first guy I've ever heard that he does the entire production by himself. And I guess it's after pandemic times that, you know, he's not able to find people to help him, but he basically does the whole thing. So this Tobalá is very distinctive. It comes from an area called San Pedro Totolapam. And San Pedro Totolapam is it's a very low elevation, actually. It's only 900 meters, so like just below 3,000 feet, I believe. And it's a really interesting, there's a river crossing through his property, so there's that access to that water. And gosh, the fact that this guy makes the entire production by himself, so his house, it's in the sort of lower area, and then his palenque, it's about 4 hours away in a donkey ride. So this is he leaves the house for about a week to 10 days. You know, wife is at home with the kids and, you know, getting you know, harvesting whatever food that they plant in their property and getting all that ready while he's making mezcal up there 4 hours away. And like he has this little flip phone that they call the Peanut, and there's only like one like little spot that he can actually get reception so that he can get in touch with his wife to see if everything is okay. And one time he just happened to have an emergency. It was nighttime, and you know, there's no electricity over there or anything like that. So the donkey basically took him back with in all the darkness, which is like this, you know, the donkey memorized the way. I mean, that's what the donkey does, right? And but this is an amazing expression. I'm gonna let you guys taste this one, but just so you know, production wise, it is again cooked underground, Tahona crushed, wooden vat fermentation, copper pot distillation. And let me know what you guys think. This is a really cool Tovala.
Marsilio, is this one the Tobola from Oaxaca, or it's a different one?
Oh yeah, it's from Oaxaca, but the region in the, I guess the town in Oaxaca, it's called San Pedro Totolapan.
Okay, just because I looking at others, like looking at sites as far as being able to purchase it, I see like Tobala Oaxaca, so was making sure that it's the same thing.
Oh yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So it has to be from Aaron. I mean, yes, Oaxaca, it is from Oaxaca still. Yeah. Just make sure that they produce the makers Aaron Robles. This is the guy. This guy, look, he's got a big smile on him, right?
Right on.
With all the hard work that he has to do. But yeah.
Where are you guys carried here in LA?
So K&L will have us for sure. And I mean, I know Old Town Liquors in San Diego, but like they'll ship to you for sure. They have most of our stuff. Let me see if there's another place that I should be looking at.
It looks like Canel only has a store pick. They don't have the stuff we're tasting today.
Oh, okay.
They haven't brought it in yet, I guess.
Mission has a bunch of different expressions.
They do. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Let me see. There's another one called Breakage Spirits. They might have some of our stuff. Beverage Warehouse. Yeah, Mission Warehouse is definitely gonna have more of our stuff.
Okay.
Shortstop on Sunset Boulevard has the Tovala. They should have it. And yeah, that's pretty much. And if you want to go drink some of that stuff, you know, if you want to go revisit them, Las Perlas will have a lot of our expressions, the bar. Yeah. Okay, and there's another market on Olympic Boulevard that's called Ramirez Liquor.
Mm.
Yeah. Wow, like, yeah. So pretty cool. How are you guys liking this Tovala? Any reactions to it?
Love it. It's amazing. I think it's my favorite too.
Nice.
I had a question about your tasting technique there. I noticed you're drinking out of, it looks kind of similar to a Glencairn. What are your thoughts on glassware for mezcal? I'm drinking out of copitas and I'm really like picking up a lot of earthiness, and I think it's the clay. in the copita, so I'm kind of working against that.
Yeah, I stopped drinking out of copitas. And I mean, I feel like that's a thing that our guys from that green bottle brand brought to us. But the copita, yes, I feel like you're tasting a lot of the clay. When the clay gets wet, it just adds flavor to your experience. Normally when you're having glass, it's usually better. But this type of glass gives you it gives you a good nose for sure.
A Kinsey glass?
Yeah, this is but this was made for us. It's not the exact one, but yeah, like the whiskey glasses that you have, or there's another type that they use in competitions that's a little bit wider as well and short. And to be honest, in a thin glass of white wine, like you will get a great experience as well. It needs to open up when you're doing it in a copita. Yeah, that's cool. Like that old fashioned, that's an old fashioned glass, right? Yeah. Okay, that looks like a caballito. Yes. So when you're doing the in the copita, I also feel like your nose is so close to the juice, which is not allowing it to like come up. And so you do get different notes. I think you get different experience. Not that it's a bad one. So just put a little less so that it can breathe a little better. But yeah. I tend not to shake the spirit too much, because all the big alcohol really creeps up the nose. But it's nice to shake it if you think that there's additives in a mezcal or a tequila.
Why do I feel like you said that? Because I was swirling my glass there.
No, I'm not even looking at you. I'm sorry. Wait, okay, you're down there. No.
Yes, Sean.
Sorry, that I'm not calling you out. I promise. But yes.
No, it was just hilarious timing that I was sitting there doing that at the bottom, and then you said it right then. And I'm like, oh shit.
No, like when I used to work behind the bar, I used to work with a tequila brand that I didn't like, and I would always have to smell all this sulfur stuff when I was like batching a cocktail. It was just bad experience. But if you want to know if something has some iffy stuff in it, then you want to shake that stuff, because when it's not shaken, then all the everything is masked and fun and stuff. So
wait, what would I be looking for when I shake
Yeah,
it?
I was gonna say this is good information. How do we figure this out?
Well, normally it's gonna be like foul flavors, foul aromas, basically, like not very pleasant, and obviously not agave like. So I think the agave aroma and flavor is very specific. And if you haven't eaten an agave, a cooked agave in the past, like I can tell you that it tastes like cooked yams, basically, like sweet yams, like and it's amazing. So so when you're shaking the spirit, normally it's very the additives will translate to their true form, basically, in a kind of like funky situation. Not to say like when you taste the Durango now, you're gonna be like, oh well, that's funky. that's very natural though. But the Durango, it's one of our funkiest stuff, but there's nothing added in there. You'll see why. But yes,
we're not tasting Durango today, are we? I don't think we are.
Oh, I thought you had it on the picture there.
No, Cenizo, Cuiche, and Solar is next.
Oh yeah, so that's the Cenizo. That's from
Cenizo.
Durango.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's from Durango, yes. Yeah, so that's actually our next guy, right? Oh, I don't have the bottle here, but so I don't have my bottle of Durango with me, but maybe you can if you don't mind, Vadim, to like share a screen of the Durango, because that's just to look at the production process in there, because there's a couple different things in here that are worth
You're
mentioning.
talking about the cenizo, right?
Cenizo, yes, I'm sorry, like I'm throwing you off right here.
There we go.
So the cenizo, guys, is everybody, wait, actually, we didn't comment on the Tobalado. Does anybody else have any comments on it? How are we doing on time here? Well, we got plenty of time. So somebody said that they loved it. I get honeysuckle and like white flowers, gardenias mainly. It's very floral, very clean, very gentle. Mezcal. A little bit of nicely caramelized flavors too. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, guys.
It doesn't taste like it's 48%. It's delightful.
No, it doesn't. It's really soft, very silky.
Tobala. I feel like I see a lot of tobalas. Elijah would know. What's the most common, espadín or tobala?
Espadín is most common, but Tobala is the most common wild agave out there.
Okay.
They call it the king of wild agaves, the Tobala. And you know, it's more present, it's more abundant than what you see in other places. That of other wild species. I mean, Tobala will take, you know, they'll usually take 13 to 15 years to grow, so it's not that bad. It's still like a lifetime, but yes. Yeah, so the thing is also Tobalas, they have a very low yield too, because it's a smaller plant. So they don't really yield that much juice to you. I mean, if you're talking about efficiency with a Tobala, you're looking at let's see how many kilos it takes to do. I guess it doesn't tell me this one. Normally we have how many kilos it takes to, oh yeah, 10 to 15 kilos of agave for 1 liter of mezcal, basically. That's what it will tell you. That's what it will do. Like if you compare it to an espadín, it has a similar yield, I guess. Yeah, with an espadín, you only use 10 kilos of agave to make 1 liter. So that's really important too. That's why sometimes we think of price of a mezcal, and we're like, well, why is that so expensive if it's the same process? But it's also, you do the same amount of work for less juice, basically. So it is the same price. Okay. So does everybody have their cenizo with them already? Okay. Do you feel like you're going into an aging room for cheese when you smell it? Kind
So
of
I'm gonna
fun,
share this so you guys can see the, if
kind
you
of
want.
leathery. Right.
If I hit play, can you hear the sound? Or just me?
Sorry, I just burned my beans.
They're speaking Spanish anyway.
So what do you guys think of the, okay, so there's a couple different things on the cenizo that are in the production part. So the cooking is, again, is underground. The shredding, this one is going to be mechanically shredded. The fermentation, though, is going to be different from what we've seen. So Durango, because it's all the way up north in northern Mexico, it's very close to the desert. So you have very hot days, very cold nights. So they have to insulate the fermentation on this one. So what they do is that they would make some ground level, some vats that are at ground level. So they'll dig some holes, cover it with cement, and then line it up with some wood. And that's where all the juices that are going to be fermented are going to be. And this is actually the best way to see when a mezcal goes through some malolactic fermentation. This is it. But this is a malolactic fermentation that went really funky. It went like if you had a cheese aging for like a couple years in there. And then distillation is going to be with a copper pot in a Filipino style still though. So the wooden it's the wooden condenser basically. So there's a few differences, right? And then I mean, cenizo is a plant that will take, about 20 kilos to get it, but there are huge plants as well. And there are some photos in there. I don't know if we're looking at all that on the screen, but there are some really interesting photos of what that still looks like. And Nombre de Dios is the region in Durango where this comes from. Very low precipitation, very high elevation, 1,700 meters. So it's like about 6,000 feet of elevation where the agaves are going from. So yeah, it's a really, does anybody get any of that stuff that I'm talking about, of the funky cheesy stuff? You get any garlic? Anybody gets any alliums in there? Yeah. What are you guys thinking on this one?
It's like a garlic and herb goat cheese.
There you go. Yeah.
Funky is good.
Yeah. And it's also like, to me, it's always like whenever I have this expression of the cenizo from Durango, it also like has this like really nice juiciness to it too. It's like it feels fresh. It feels even though you're getting all this funky stuff at the beginning, but then at the end it just becomes juicy and nice. So I think that's
yeah.
really,
I mean, for me, this is really well put together. It's very creamy on, the palate, and it's very well balanced for me. It's not super spiky at any one point. It's just very nicely put together and just kind of goes seamlessly from end, palate to finish. I really like this.
cool. Yeah, and again, like we still see a difference in the proof levels. This is at 47.2. I think our Kabbalah was at 40, 47, I think, or 48. Yeah, 48.7. And so it's like every mezcalero is just doing their thing, and then they're just, they're trying to give justice to each expression in that sense. And has anybody from the mezcales that we've had, what's been your experience with smoke, with all the expressions that we've had so far? And everything has been roasted underground with wood and sealed and everything.
It's interesting because I know mezcal is known as the smoky cousin of tequila. And a lot of people taste a lot of smoke. And I'm very sensitive to like peat smoke. But when I drink mezcal, I don't really notice the smoke as much. Like none of these have been super smoky for me. I haven't noticed the smoke at all in these.
Yeah.
I got a little bit on the ancho and the espadín, but very muted. Nothing like super overpowering. Like the warm up I was having before that is way smokier.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of the smoky either. So all of these have been right up my alley.
Yeah.
Cool.
I got the smokiest I've tasted so far was the ancho, but it was more like that cooked smoke, like a really good barbecue kind of flavor, and the espadín was more like a roasted flavor. So it wasn't quite, it was almost like it's the indirect cooking somehow compared to the straight barbecue of the first one.
Cool. I mean, and that's really interesting to note because yes, we do think about mezcal of being smoky, and there's always a misconception, right? Of like when I used to work in retail and or like behind the bar, it would be like, hey, can you give me a mezcal that's like really, really smoky or like something medium? And I'm like, I was just like, I don't know if we categorize mezcal in that way. I mean, yes, you can find some mezcales to be smoky and stuff, but when you're really, you have to be mindful that when a mezcalero is producing something, they're trying to express the agave, right? They're not trying to express the smoke. When you taste a mezcal that's really, really smoky, I mean, not that some high quality mezcales are not going to be smoky, but when you get that like intense smokiness and your palate is very tannic, it's like dries your entire palate and stuff like that. That's when I think that you're getting something that's, it's produced for high volume, basically, and they're all about efficiency. It's really important that some of the mezcaleros, when they're cooking some of these agaves, that they really chop the burnt parts of the agave. And then there's also another way to do it to gather some smoke from the oven. It's like during the distillation process, when you let the tails run off a little bit into the final product, then you can add some of those smoky flavors into it as well. So that's just a fun fact there. Just so you guys know. And I've changed a lot of people's minds because people have told me like, oh my God, yeah, like I just don't like mezcal because it's extremely smoky. And then, that's because they went to a bar and they had their mezcal and they had a shot of it and they were like, oh my God, that's so intense. And then you let them try something like what we're having right now. And it's like, okay, it's completely different. Even the mezcal that our brand makes for the well, there's a good balance of smokiness in there too. So yeah. So the next guy that we have, does anybody have any other questions on the cenizo? What do you guys think? No? Okay. My label ripped because I was traveling with this bottle and 3 other bottles broke. But this is the Mezcal Leyendas. This is what we're calling the Vinata Solar. The back is even more terrible. But so the Vinata Solar, it's also from Durango. So what I like that we're doing on this tasting, we're doing a contrast of 2 agaves that are coming from the same state, same exact region, completely different production methods. For as Mezcal de Leyendas, we have and we have it listed on our website. We want to become a brand it's net zero at one point. And I'm always very honest with everybody, and I tell them like, look, this is a very utopian dream, but at least we're doing something towards it. And the Vinata Solar is that. So the Vinata Solar, what it does is it's your first mezcal. It's your first carbon neutral mezcal, basically. If you remove the production of the bottle and the trucks that it took to get it to you guys. But this is a mezcal that was produced by with solar panels. So we have a little thing. We have a little tractor that we called El Bicho, and this tractor was modified to become an oven, an alambic, and all electric. So the oven is a steam oven that we did in the engine compartment where the agave. Where the engine is supposed to be, we turned that into the steam oven. And then in the back of the tractor, they set up an alambic, a copper alambic that's also powered by electric. And the mechanical shredder, instead of being mechanical shredders, normally use some gas or they can be electric. So that was powered by solar panels as well. So this is the first mezcal that's out there that has solar panels and as the entire production method. And it's a very interesting one as well, because so now we have the agaves that are going to be, instead of being roasted on the ground, they're going to be steamed, kind of like what you would see in tequila production. It's going to have a mechanical shredder. The fermentation is still done in wooden vats, and the distillation is going to be done in copper. So it's pretty cool thing that we did that one. So
this is steamed instead of cooked, right?
Instead of roasted, yes. Mm-hmm.
So like, I know it's not an autoclave, but like essentially same general idea, right? Just different way of roasting it.
Yeah. Just yeah. So it's cooked with the steam, basically.
So was that his style before, you guys like linked up with him, or was this like an experiment where he was like, hey, I want to try this, and you guys were like, hey, cool, do it?
No, this is actually a partnership that was done with the University of I forget what there was a Mexican, there's some guys in this university in Mexico, I think it's in Guadalajara, that they worked on this machine basically to they modified this tractor completely to do it. And but no, this was not a practice done. Steam cooking was not a practice that this maestro mezcalero did. I mean, in Durango, like, no, no. Durango, it's always been roasted agaves, like the one you had previously. So
and the brand kind of raised money from it too, right? Not that that's a bad thing, but like there was a funding round that was kind of based on it. Like, I'm doing a lot of Googling right now.
Okay. Oh yeah, we were crowdfunding for the is that the one that you found? Look, okay, yeah. So we were crowdfunding for that, and for to get this project off the ground, and yeah, and it turned out to be good. Now, I guess this prototype of this machine that was done, right, is it's beautiful, it's amazing and everything, but you cannot put enough agaves into the cooking chamber. So they're actually working on a bigger oven. So that's gonna be powered by solar electricity. And the way they do that, right, is they heat up these coils and then they add steam to it, right? So the guys from Tequila Ocho, if you're familiar with that, and there's a mezcal called Mina Real in Oaxaca. The way they steam their agaves is by using these coils, and then they add the steam after, rather than doing the mamposteria or like the traditional brick ovens. So there's like some coils that go around the chamber, and that's how they get cooked basically. So
yeah, it was cool. It seemed a little bit like a proof of concept, but I mean, it's a good thing. Like the sustainability with agave is a big concern because it's blowing up so big. You can't just pull in wild agave forever. So anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean the wild agave, but also I think in this part is mainly getting the wood that is being used for cooking, right? And also all the CO2 that you're bringing into the atmosphere, correct? So yes, so yes, it is a nice proof of concept. It's definitely I wouldn't call this a traditional, but it still falls into the category of being a mezcal artesanal, because even though the oven is electric, there's no restriction on whether you're roasting or steaming. And then you're still using a copper alembic that they just were able to adapt to electrical source of power, which is which a lot of mezcaleros are starting to, not the traditional ones, but a lot of for cost issues, they're going to gas powered alambics. So they're using actual just fire, not wood fire, because they get a more consistent temperature and things like that. So yeah, so I'm sure that they had to play a lot with the temperature of the alambic in here, because I don't know if consistency in the temperature that you get in the alambic is necessarily a better thing for mezcal, but I'm assuming that it might be. I mean, considering like whiskey production and tequila production and stuff like that. So yeah, but this is it's nice to compare and contrast the two cenizos that you're getting here, right? The two agave duranguenses that you're getting, and get a different perspective of, you do know that you're drinking mezcal when you're drinking this nata solar, but also you just give you another way, another flavor profile, completely different flavor profile than what you would expect from a normal cenizo that's being roasted and distilled in a copper alambic powered by, wood fire. So to me, I get, obviously the flavor is clean, the texture is clean, it's very silky, as if you were doing a high proof tequila. But what you don't get in a tequila that's high proof, it's like this seaweed, this melon, this cucumber flavors to it that I think make it a very pleasant type of mezcal. And yes, people have told us like, oh no, I'm not gonna drink that because it's not roasted. And I respect that, because it falls. I mean, I've been doing tastings and visit to like expert buyers, and then I tell them that these agaves were steamed, and they just set the bottle aside because they're not interested in a steamed agave. So, but I think this is a very approachable and likable expression, to be honest, to have from something from Durango like this. Any reactions on it?
I was curious of why the bottle is yellow, because when I was first pouring it, when I looked at the lineup, I was like, oh, it must be aged. Maybe it's a reposado of some sort. But then I poured it and I realized it was clear. I was a little shocked.
So the yellow bottle represents the sun.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what it does. And there's like the little copper wiring around the neck of the bottle, which is like, I guess, a conducer of electricity.
Is that actual copper? Can I recycle that and get some money back?
Well, so that's what I tell everybody, right? I'm like, the cool thing about this is like, after you drink the bottle, you go sell the copper. It is actual copper.
Oh, wow.
It is copper. Yeah, this is. So yes, it's copper, and you can get money from it too. Yes. And then go recycle the glass, and so.
Is there any fun story with the bottle design? I noticed all the bottles have what looks like hand woven necks and stuff like that, but the rope or whatever. Is there any story behind that?
So I think the rope, it's this is from agave fibers. And but that's a really good question that I don't have an answer to, and I'm so sorry for that. About the bottle design, but the bottle design is it's beautiful, it's elegant, it's subtle, and it's heavy too. But all I know is that from the label perspective, that we want to present the production process, the mezcalero, and in some of the bottles that you'll see, like for example this one, you'll see inside the label, you'll see the agave that's being used. So but it's kind of like magnifying glass when you look at it inside, right? So So you will, but no, I don't know. I'm so sorry. Wow, I should, that's the next question I'm gonna have for my boss in our next meeting about bottle design. Yeah, and like this is a mold that we have already. So even with the glass shortage, you're not gonna see us putting our juice in different bottles because it's already a mold that we have. So it's fine. So yeah, we got a maker for it and stuff. So yeah, cool. Should we move on to the next one, but not least? How's everybody feeling? This is amazing that we are doing, what is it? 2, 4, 6 different mezcales. This is great that it's 6. And I mean, I wish we did more, but I know, like, even I would get really drunk. Even with all my experience, I would get.
That's why in Mexico, they drink it at 35 so that they can drink more.
Yeah.
Hey,
I can't do the 35 stuff. Huh?
It's Friday night, man. Let's party.
Let's party. Yes, let's do it. So the next one that we're doing is quiche, right? It's this is maguey quiche. It's also from Oaxaca. It's from an area called San Jeronimo in the south of Oaxaca. And this is actually what's considered to be the quiche region. It's this is the gentleman doing it, Don Catarino Hernandez. Look at his face. He's actually, a much older gentleman. And we're gonna get a little bit of a different perspective here because this is actually the agave. So like this mezcal would be considered ancestral if it were to be distilled in clay pots. So it goes with the underground cooking. The crushing is done by hand in a canoe. So you can see that in there, like right there. So that's what the hand crushing would look like in right here. So it's a wooden mass. They'll use a wooden canoe. So it's like they'll hollow a tree trunk basically, and that's what they'll use. And quiche is a varietal that derives from the family of agave called Karwinskis. So if you've ever seen Madre Quiche, Biquiche, Barril, Tripon, and Quiche, they're all Karwinskis. They grow in very specific regions. These are agaves that grow in patches, basically. So it's funny because you'll see 3 or 4 different agave varietals that belong to the same family of Karwinskis growing in a patch, basically. So you'll have 4 different agaves in the same little position. They share the root system basically, and this is a really interesting, and this is one that I think that from everything that we've had, I think that it presents a lot more of that, some of those milkier flavors to it. Most of the quiche that I've had in the past has been from Miahuatlan, and so they're more like, they have a lot more cotton candy flavors to it and more caramel, more like candy-like stuff like bubble gum and stone fruit situation. This one doesn't have any of that, which is that's gives you another perception of terroir, right? It's like this one doesn't have those flavors of bubble gum and sugar, what do you call that? Cotton candy and stuff like that. So it's more like wet earth, wet herbs, stuff like that. Still a lovely expression though. What's everyone's reaction?
It smells like lemongrass. That real sharpish, grassy note. It's
Mhm.
really good. I mean, it's so completely different.
Yeah. And Karwinskis have like different characteristics, and they're very excuse me, they have very strong flavors. Sometimes I get that like green apple like skin flavor, a little bit of it does have a spicy finish, and it does have that peaty smoke situation on this one. At least I pick it up. Yeah, and then again, high elevation. And what quiche are really interesting is that they're agaves that when they're cooked. So we talked in the beginning about like how an espadín will taste like cooked yams and stuff. You taste one of these agaves that they're bitter. They taste really bitter when you taste them cooked, and very acidic as well. So this is not, I wouldn't recommend you to go to a palenque and eat some of the quiche agaves because you're not going to like it. And also like they grow really tall and skinny, like a tree trunk basically, or like a yucca, if you know what I mean. So they, the concentration of sugars that they have is not very high either. It's a very low concentration of sugars, very low yield. I mean, it takes 20 to 25 kilos to do 1 liter of agave for this. And the fibers of the quiche are very tough to crush. So the fact that this guy does it by hand, it's like another level of difficulty that it brings. And the plant will take about 14, 15 years to grow. So yeah.
I think this is a new favorite for me.
Cool. Thank you. This is, only 180 bottles they made. So the other thing about some of these expressions that we've had, right? It's like, the ancho, we have 500 bottles on this batch, and Tobalá, I think it's much smaller one, but 132 bottles of the Tobalá. But, oh, that's a cool survey. Yeah, so
Give us a second on this one, Vadim. I'm revisiting.
Your facial expression when I posted the survey was just priceless. You're like, God damn it. It's like you didn't know it was coming.
yeah, so as you can see, this one also has the acidity still comes through after it's being distilled. It's not a very sweet agave, to be honest. It's just acidic and complex and herbal and wet. Makes your mouth salivate a little bit more than any of the other ones that we've had so far today. But yeah. And then this one, because it's in a black label, in a brown label, this is what we're calling a limited release. These are the stuff that we get whenever it's out there, like whenever the mezcaleros has it, we get it from him. So this is not stuff that we consistently have. I mean, this batch runs out and we might not have it for another year or so like that. So that's
it's crazy how different all of the expressions are. Like everyone's just so unique. And in this one, getting that especially on the nose, man. I mean, as soon as you go to the nose, it's 100% different than everything else. I mean, it's really impressive.
Yeah, thank you for that. And the other thing about the line, right? How all of them are so different from each other. And when I initially started the conversation, I made clear that we have as a brand, we have the largest coverage of the denomination of origin. And this is what it means to be able to do that. We work with every bottle that you have in front of you is made by a different person, basically by a different maestro mezcalero. So there is no and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some brands that you taste and you find a little bit of a DNA string throughout all the bottles, and you know, that's sometimes because they're using the same producer, or sometimes because, you know, they want it to be consistent in a way, so that it identifies the brand, it distincts the brand. If you were to have any of this stuff on a blind tasting, even if you had them all together, you would think that you're getting mezcales from different brands. Like that's just the way we are. So it makes it fun, because you know you're gonna get a completely different juice, completely different flavor from everything that you taste from Mezcal de Leyendas. So
So your focus is more on different mezcaleros, not on different agaves, right?
well, different agaves, different mezcaleros, different different production methods, different everything, to be honest. I mean, so again, it's about getting the best expression of each agave that we bottle, each agave expression that we bottle. And sometimes that's an ancestral. We have a coyote from Americana that's an ancestral, and I think that's an amazing expression to have in an ancestral. I don't care too much for an ancestral it's an espadín, to be honest. Like, I don't really care much for espadín. I love arroqueños, I love coyotes in ancestral method. They just have a bigger amount of sugars that they kind of put up with the strong flavors that the clay has to provide to the mezcal. So yeah. But the idea is to have, we have stuff from Puebla. We're working on a batch from Michoacán. We have stuff from San Luis Potosí. So, you know, so we're kind of there. We're covering a little bit of all the regions as possible. But obviously we have most expressions that we have, they do come from Oaxaca. So we have the Tobalá, the Espadín, the Quiche, and we have something else from Oaxaca. The Coyote is also from Oaxaca. So, yeah. So we have about 4 or 5 expressions.
Did the brand name change?
Yes.
Recently, I was wondering.
So we used to be called Mezcales de Leyenda, and we went to being Mezcal de Leyendas, because the name. So it was a weird label, that the one that we used to have. I don't know who thought about this, and this was before my time, but basically the way the line used to work was Durango, San Luis Potosí, like it would mention basically the states, and it would provide a little animal that was endemic to that state. And so it was called Mezcales de Leyenda, kind of like to tell like a legend or about the locality where it was made. But they were like, we're doing it all wrong, because we're not giving credit to the guys that are actually making this stuff, which are the mezcaleros, and are the true legends of the mezcal. They're the ones telling the stories, they're the ones creating the story and expressing themselves with each bottle. So there was a shift in the branding, and then and that's why, I mean, this guy, this is the legend, right? And we're paying tribute to him. And I am just, I'm just a bridge for him, basically, to present his mezcal. I cannot take any credit for for anything that these guys are doing. I mean, I can't, like, I don't know how to make that stuff. I can talk about it. I can taste it. I was gifted with, with, I think, a palate that can taste things that are good and bad, but, don't put me behind an alambic or a cooking process because I'm not going to be able to do it. I tried distilling pineapple and I failed. So yeah. So those were my days of distillation. It was 1 week.
For sure.
Have you guys ever done a pechuga?
So with the Leyendas brand, no, but we have something from Pelotón de la Muerte that's called a vegan pechuga. And so what that is it's also from Guerrero. It's using 2 different agaves. Hold on, I think I have a bottle right here.
Yeah, and they use like pine nuts and fruit instead of like meat in the still, right?
Yeah, so we're using
See, that's perfect for LA. I mean, everybody's gonna love that vegan.
yeah. so I
And
guess
it's called
that's the
Peloton.
restaurant called, yeah, so this is Pelotón de la Muerte. So this is our kind of like, brand that's more for cocktails. But so the vegan pechuga doesn't have any meat, obviously. And so if you're familiar with a pechuga, normally with a pechuga, you will hang in the condensing chamber, you will hang the protein, and then you throw the fruits into the pot, right? Whatever fruits and nuts and stuff like that, you throw them in a little bag with a kind of like a mesh, and you do it on the 2nd or 3rd distillation. This one, we're not throwing the fruit or the spices into the pot. We're actually putting it in a basket, kind of like you would do with a gin. So it's got citrus and spices. They don't tell us what the spices they're throwing because it's a secret recipe. You've probably heard that with every pechuga in the market, that they have their own recipe. And so yeah, so they do that. They do it in Guerrero. They're using criollo and ancho, which translates to espadín and cupreata. And they're throwing it on the 2nd distillation. It's still a 45%. And it's truly like all the essence of the citrus and the spices really comes through. When you have it in your nose, it's like, it's all this oily aromas of orange. And then your mind immediately thinks that it's going to be sweet. But then when you taste it, it's like, it's a completely different, it's a very balanced experience. So.
Is that available anywhere up here?
Yeah. It's widely available, this one. LA loves this stuff. We're actually trying to, I was in LA, I think 2 weeks ago, and I was at Madre Los Angeles, or like, where's that Mexican vegan restaurant?
Tu Madre in
That's it.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Gracias, Madre.
Gracias, Madre. There you go. So yeah.
Sean, I'm disappointed. You should have known that one.
I was there like a month ago. I should have been better.
I pitched this to them and they were like, what? And it was funny because there were some other people. I was tasting the bartenders on it, and there were some customers sitting at the bar next to us. And the bartender is describing them pechuga and stuff like that. And then I give them a little taste to this. And then they're like, wait, we just tried a pechuga, and like, that's not cool, man. And I was like, no, this is vegan pechuga. So because they were really concerned about it. So, but yeah, it's a really cool expression, and it makes, if you like Negronis, it's gonna make an amazing Negroni. But if you want to make a margarita without triple sec, this is your guy right here. So kind of, or you can sip it straight. It's very Christmassy, to be honest. It's very spices, Christmas spices and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, when you said pine nuts and spices, immediately I thought kind of holidays, Christmas like.
Yeah, this is it. And Pelotón de la Muerte means the squadron of death. This is a brand that it was the the story behind it, the way it was formed, it was because it's very attached to the Mexican independence, which is not May 5th. It's September 16th, but it's actually the father of the independence of Mexico, Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla. He was the one that he was captured by the Spanish crown and killed and decapitated, and like his bones were spread around the city and all that stuff. So this is the flag that they used. So they made the squadron of death, and this is the flag that they use, and the bones are representing his bones, and you can't tell, but like in the quadrants of the flag, you can see his name and like that he's a sufferer for the, all that stuff. So it's
What's the proof on that?
45.1. Yeah. And the one that we have, the other one that we have from Guerrero, that's called Criollo, which is the Angustifolia from Guerrero, or the Espadín from Guerrero. That one's still at 50%, and it's incredible. So, yeah.
And where do we find the one that's incredible?
Yeah, same stores that I mentioned that we talked about. They're gonna be there for sure. Everybody that gets Peloton, normally they will get the Criollo. That's like, honestly, I always call it the biggest bang for your buck, because it's like, if you don't want to think about too much about complexities and flavor profiles and stuff like that, you get the Criollo, because you're getting all of it. You're getting high concentration of alcohol, like 50%, and then you're getting a lot of flavor, good layers, and then they're very present, so you don't have to think about them too much. Like, if you have Mezcal de Leyendas, you want to sit, relax, and enjoy them, and be present. But if you don't want to think, you have Criollo. If you want to think, you have Leyendas. So, yeah.
It looks like we have a question in the chat. How do you spell that?
Peloton. Oh, here, let me write that. Which one? The Peloton? Oh, Criollo. Here, I'm gonna. Oh, wait. Why am I not allowed to write? What?
There's a breathalyzer test.
It's a breathalyzer test. Oh, I don't know why. Oh, there you go. Okay, perfect. Don't confuse it with the bike, though. Okay.
Spelled the same.
The first time you said that, all I could think of is a crazy bunch of bicyclists, like the cycles of death or something.
That's a good like team name for Peloton.
Well, the other.
Oh yeah, just put a bunch of Dia de los Muertos mask on, and then just jump on the Peloton, take a bunch of pictures. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that would be actually. So I do ride my bicycle, like, I do a few rides and stuff, not Peloton.
What you all don't realize is he's actually a Peloton coach.
I'm sorry.
Marsilio is actually a Peloton trainer.
Yes. I was sitting at a bar and showing the Peloton brand, and then somebody next to me was like, wait, like, you should totally pick up from the Sex in the City show, that the new one they did, and that the guy died in the Peloton bike. It's like, is that affecting your sales? No,
you guys should buy advertising like during that show. It would work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I'm sure it's really pricey, but yes, it would be. I mean, it makes sense. Everybody can attach to the Peloton brand for sure. It's so funny. Yeah.
At this point, I don't think they say no to anybody, because they're hurting real bad.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because of
They took a huge hit. I mean, not just the stupid Sex in the City thing, but yeah, I think they laid off like over 30% of their workforce earlier this year.
Oh wow, that's crazy. I mean, those are freaking expensive bikes. The
Sean?
Simpsons did recently one, right? They did a show on the Peloton. He's like, "Can I get a wife bike?"
You said, Sean, you said they laid off like 30% of their employees. Did Elon Musk take over for them?
No, but you know, maybe they should sign up for a Twitter account and he might end up buying them.
So, Marcio, before we go completely off the rails, I had a mezcal related question for you.
Wait, what? What are those?
So I guess like personally, I'm really trying to figure out how to become an educated mezcal buyer. And you
Yes.
know, I guess the hard thing for me is you go into a good shop and there's like 50 to 100 bottles, and there's so much variation amongst those bottles. So you did a great job tonight kind of helping me understand the different variables in the equation of the different production methods and the different agave species and kind of what those contribute. But I'm just wondering, in a general sense, when you're looking at a wall of mezcal, what
Yeah.
kind of like formula do you look at that gets you really excited when you're overwhelmed with choices? Is there a certain type of agave that stands out to you, or are there certain production types that you get excited about?
So I like, gosh, I like the brands. So I know this is not my brand, but when Mezcal Vago came out initially, the reason I picked up the bottle from the shelf was because of the transparency that they had in their label. So like they had your entire production method in there. And I thought that that was extremely helpful. So so I look at that. Those are really important things. Things that create you know, confidence in a brand. To me, it's like, are you giving credit to the person that's actually making this bottle for you? And are you actually describing the entire process that went through? Now, in terms of flavor profiles, like the way you become more, you gain expertise on that, it's obviously by tasting. So when you do go to a bar and taste some mezcal, and like, you know, instead of paying $150 for a bottle, go pay $20 for a shot, have it, see what you like, take notes of it. And but also like always request a bottle. I think that's the best. Your research happens at the bar, and then, you know, your whatever you're gonna take home in an educated way is from that experience. So I mean, for myself, I've been very privileged to have access to so much mezcal in the past 15 years, just because of working behind the bar and stuff like that. But it's better to go and like go do the store tastings. If there's any stores that are doing mezcal tastings, go to the festivals. Like, I know Mexico in a Bottle doesn't happen in LA, but I think a month ago or so, they had the LA Tequila Fest or something like that, or the Tequila People. And those are great shows to attend, because I don't know, you pay $100 and something, and then you have access to like 100 different products. So ask the questions to people like me, like that we sort of are behind the brand. And you know, we have like an insider information of how everything's made and stuff like that, and we can guide you through because that's how I learned. The way I learned about mezcal was because there were no books when I started going into this stuff, and it was just like educating from brand owners, like the suppliers, the distributors, anybody that could give me any information on how everything was made. But now I think it's important to take a look at batch sizes, at regions, and take note of the regions, and take note of, take note of what agave types you like. There are people that they've found their agave and they just want to go into that wormhole of like, I just want to try every Arroqueño that's out there, and I'm going to pick up a bottle because I'm confident with it. And, Arroqueño doesn't grow in so many regions, so you're limited to that. You're just going to be tasting the different hands of every maker of Arroqueño. So, but yeah, transparency is one of the most important things, though, from that to look out from a brand. I think that's the best thing that you can do. It's like look for transparency.
So on that same note, something that I noticed is like in tequila, obviously we know about the NOM numbers, which kind of just takes that transparency all the way through, right?
Yes.
I know that there is no true NOM system for Mezcal, but is that something that you guys are working on, trying to push in the background to bring that transparency all the way to the foreground?
Yeah, so tequila, I mean, like if you go to the website of the CRM or the tequila
Or
regulatory,
Wine Searcher?
yeah, no, but like the Tequila Regulatory Council, like what you can find from there, it's like basically if they're telling the truth, right? But about what area they're producing it. So like the tequila world is very robust in terms of information. Like you have Tequila Matchmaker, basically, that they have this whole thing. But also for Mezcal, they have Mezcal reviews. But it's also about like we on Mezcal reviews, I actually have to get in touch with them because we don't have much of our presence there. But yeah, but they do. I mean, like we do have the noms, and I'm sure if you go onto the website of the Mezcal Regulatory Council, you're gonna find that all of these mezcaleros, the thing is that, so even though we're being made so like by a different producer in every state, we still have the same nom. We still have the same nom because of we're bottling it. Everything is getting bottled in Mexico City. So and then you might think, well, like where's the control? And like there's no standardized procedure. But with Mezcal, it's like we're not building factories. We're not building like tequila would do, right? They have factories that they will make many brands in the same distillery. With Mezcal, and like for us, every mezcalero that we have produces only for us. And there are other brands that they will have, there are mezcaleros that are producing for 3 different brands. So that will be in the database the Mezcal Regulatory Council's website. It's going to be there. If you search our nom, it's going to tell you everything about the nom and where it gets bottled and all that stuff.
But you're saying though that it's where it's bottled that is what matters on the nom. I thought that it was actually the manufacturer, because like the way I got introduced to it, right, was like the Terrimana or the 818 tequila, where they say, oh, like we're a small producer, and it's like except you make 400 brands for other people, and it brought that transparency.
Yeah, so it's where. So the nom, it translates to Norma Oficial Mexicana, which is or like the official norm, basically, but it's not attached necessarily to the denomination of origin. It's a business registry, basically. So every product in Mexico that gets produced in Mexico has a nom. But the thing is that with tequila, it was so easy because you have the nom, and you put it, and you produce 100 brands, and all those 100 brands have to have that nom. What we're doing here is like we have 20 producers that are using the same nom, but are also under the same brand, if you know what I mean. I mean, we can now. What I'm thinking, I'm sorry, but the way we're doing it is like, yes, our factory, if you want to call it, it's our bottling facility, because each one of our mezcaleros, they don't have to worry about taxes or anything like that. We buy the product from them directly. And then it all gets shipped to Mexico City, and it all gets bottled in Mexico City. And then it gets shipped to, wherever it's gonna go. So yes, it can be misleading to think about noms when you talk about mezcal. Bottling facilities, there are not that many, to be honest. Like I think Oaxaca has about 3 or 4 bottling facilities, and most people will do those, but they will register. The thing is that we're a different case because we work with so many mezcaleros in different states and different regions. But like for like some mezcales, let's say Holgorio, for example, they only work in Oaxaca. And so it's like they will bring everything together in a single location and bottle it there. But they can only, they just have to register one facility basically. So, I mean, even the Durango stuff has the same norm as we do.
Well, no, it's just super fascinating my understanding of the difference now between the tequila side and the mezcal side.
Yeah.
Specifically when it relates to nom. And also fun little fact I didn't know that you just turned me on to is that every product in Mexico has to have a nom. I was not aware of that. So that's something very interesting I'm going to look into.
Oh yeah. So yeah, so the norm is not necessarily from the regulatory councils. It's actually it's over there, the IRS, it's called SAT, which is SAT. And it's like that's an Hacienda, those are the ones that basically regulate taxes and all that stuff and make sure that you're paying your share. So that's why you register. So like I was gonna open a restaurant in Guadalajara, and I had to get a nom registration for it. So yeah. So yeah, it's for products in general. Like if you look at other Mexican products, they'll have a nom. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You guys with all your questions, we lost Tony. Everyone raise a glass and smile. Let's do our customary photo for real quick. Cheers to Marsilio.
Cheers.
Just smile in the shot.
Oh, there you go.
Everyone smile to your camera. Cheers. Got it.
Salud.
We were going so strong. You guys kept asking questions. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do.
Do you work for Tahona Mercado in San Francisco?
Yes, I not anymore.
Okay.
But I did I was responsible for curating part of the list of basically everything beverage there.
Yeah, I got some stuff from them. I did some of their tastings. I haven't done it in a little while, but it's great stuff. It's a good store. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's a cool store. Like I live 4 blocks away from Tahona Mercado. It's definitely a great job. So yeah, if you do buy online, Tahona Mercado does have all of our expressions, most of them, and they will ship to LA as well. So that's a cool place to. Here, I'll write it on the chat so that everybody gets it. But yes, I did a couple of the virtual tastings with Tahona Mercado. And that's when I was living in Mexico, and I was bringing mezcal that I was buying directly from producers, and I was just sharing a little bit that I could with people I wanted to share with. And yeah, so it was, I did it like 2 times with them, so it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Like I've actually been I've been managing a project in Tijuana, and so I've been visiting liquor stores, and it's just been very interesting, like the distribution between 2 countries and the differences. I've been trying to learn about that. So in terms of like mezcal, if you're in Mexico, like what do you look for? Like small producers that don't distribute to the US? Any tips in that direction?
So so a lot of the product that you get, that mezcales that get sold in Mexico, they are, they have a good distribution system, and they have the capacity to sell in Mexico and to actually pay for the Mexican taxes, because for a lot of mezcal brands, it's really difficult. They have to make the tough decision whether they want to sell in the Mexican market or outside. And it's actually a lot cheaper to sell outside of Mexico, because you're paying, I don't know, like, I think the tax is like 60% for a bottle. It's like, of the cost of production, that's how much you have to pay in taxes. So a lot of mezcaleros are discouraged to basically do anything. So that's why a lot of producers, they don't want to deal with it. They just want to make their juice. They keep some for their town and for the weddings and baptisms and all that stuff. And then whatever they have left over, they'll sell it to brands. And then the brands will take care of all the sort of legalities of making it, running it through the lab and like paying the taxes, getting all import, export, all that stuff. So, but when you go down there, you're going to see there's a lot of brands that are like highly, what do you call it? Commercial. Like if you fly from the Guadalajara airport, you're going to see like 2 stores of like Signum Mezcal, which is like, it's this like massively produced mezcal that's garbage, basically. Like, yeah, it's made with diffuser, and it's like, if you're familiar with tequila and diffusers, that's the mezcal. There are about 3 brands that are doing diffuser mezcal, which is, they call it the new technology. So, but it's not. It's just very neutral spirit. So again, like the usual players are gonna be the ones that are transparent, and they're gonna show you. I think in Mexico in general, the mezcal consumption and appreciation for it, it's slowly building up, but there's still not that sort of added value to mezcal yet. If you go to Mexico City, there's going to be a couple of nice mezcal bars, La Botica being one, and then there's another one called Bosforo. There's another one called it's in the Centro Histórico. I'm forgetting the name of it, but basically you can have 60-liter. You can have a shot of mezcal of a 60-liter batch, and you're not going to pay that much money, but it's also not certified or anything like that. So, but it's still going to be really good. So go to those bars if you're in Mexico. If you're in the border town, basically like Tijuana and stuff like that, then Tahona Mercado did open at Tijuana. So they did that. So if you're, you can go there and geek out about some mezcal. There's a guy down there that seems to be pretty knowledgeable. I haven't personally met him yet, but I've heard that he's good with recommending stuff. So yeah. Any other questions? Anybody?
Clayton
is gonna ask something.
I was just gonna ask for your social media, and then I'll be quiet for the rest of the night.
social media or social? No,
So-
man, keep them coming, man. It's all good.
My social media or the brands?
It's about
Okay, so Instagram.
and also mother's maiden name.
My mother's name.
Last 4 of your social, the street you grow up on, your first dog.
My first dog name was Minula.
All right. And all these things combined make up your rocker name. Your mezcalero name is your street you grew up on.
My first car was a
Yeah,
Toyota
exactly.
Supra of 83.
What do you think was the number one expression of tonight? Take a guess.
I'm gonna have to go with the espadín.
Okay, well, we did a poll and the number one expression was Tobala.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 44% voted Tobala, 22% Espadín and Quiche, and then 11% Cenizo.
That's
I was that one Cenizo.
There
wow.
you go.
How many people were today?
9 people voted in this.
Okay. Espadín, no, I guess Espadín was the second. Oh, was competing with the Quiche. That's interesting. Wow.
Mhm.
So that's not so bad. I mean, it's I mean, there's likability a lot amongst all of them. So that's great. Thank you guys.
For sure.
This gives me reassurance that we do have a good product. Good job taking the job, Marcy. Leaving Tahona Mercado for this. No, I still support the Mercado. You know, I was in charge of collecting bread the other day from them, so I did that, and I take the garbage out every Monday. So yeah. Well, honestly, it's been an honor and a pleasure, guys, to share with you like my perspective and my experience with mezcal in general. Yes, I work for the brand and stuff like that, but I'm an advocate for the category, and you know, so I'm always talking about it in general terms and stuff. It's like I like supporting other brands as well. I like supporting those brands that are really making a difference in the market. And yeah, and you know, it's a tough situation to be put in, to like actually have to select a brand that you are gonna be representing and like, you know, gonna be your like go-to for everything. But the reason I think Leyendas is an important place to be is just because of the diversity that you get, also the care that we, you know, how much we value each one of our partners, which is each one of these legends. I think that's one of the most important aspects of it. And we're not bargaining prices with them. We're not trying to, you know, get the best deal from, and we're also not signing any long-term contracts with them, or any contract for that matter, because if tomorrow they want to go and produce for somebody else and they don't want to produce for us, then that's okay. They're not attached to anything. They're not attached to a price. They're not attached to anything. You know, every year is going to change, and that's the best way that we can support them. So okay, thank you guys.
For sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for spending the evening with us.
Thank you, Marsilio.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Marsilio,
Thanks, Marsilio.
I said it earlier, but I mean, super informational. I am really impressed with the knowledge that you have and taking the time to share all of the details. That was really cool. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
We didn't stump you once, and we tried hard.
That's okay. If you next one we do, you know, we're gonna, you can feel more, you know, comfortable in doing it. Now that we're gonna have a rapport, right? Okay. Thanks, Clayton.
For sure. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, Shane. All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you.